The UN Human Rights Chief says that they are troubled by the treatment of students who are protesting in solidarity with Palestinians at US universities. The protest showed no sign of slowing as they spread coast to coast over the weekend, and police crackdowns and arrests continued. Students vowed to stay in tented encampments until their demands are met. Now, these are pictures from Columbia University in New York. Students occupying Hamilton Hall have barricaded themselves inside the building. They are like with other states, there are activists that have joined students calling for their universities to cut ties with Israel. They're also urging an end to US military aid.
We are troubled by a series of heavy-handed steps taken to disperse and dismantle protests across university campuses in the United States of America. Freedom of expression and the right to peaceful assembly are fundamental to society, particularly when there is a sharp disagreement on major issues, as there are in relation to the conflict in the occupied Palestinian territory and Israel.
Let's cross over to Kristen Salumi. She's outside Columbia University in New York. The tension was pretty high there in the last 24 hours and many more people joining the protest. But the focus seems to be on the building behind you right now.
That's right. We're told it's calm on campus, but they are only allowing a very limited number of people onto the campus in an attempt to de-escalate the situation. The encampment remains, but only students who live on campus are being allowed to go onto the campus, and essential personnel for the university itself. Media not being allowed on anymore to film what's happening as those demonstrators have taken over the building that you see over here. That is Hamilton Hall, renamed Hind Hall in honor of the 6-year-old girl who was killed in Gaza. The demonstrators stormed that building in the early morning hours, taking it over, blockading it so no one could get inside. This is a group that is autonomous from the group that is in the encampment itself. Many of the people who have been participating in the demonstrations on campus, in fact, can't get back on. You know, not everybody was sleeping in that tent area, but a lot of supporters came out when there was rumors of an arrest yesterday as a deadline was set for the students to clear the encampment. Many teachers and other students came out to surround it and prevent that from happening. No arrests were made, but the situation continued into the night. So this morning, many were surprised to learn that they could not get back on campus. I should also say that the suspension notices have been going out to many students that have been participating in these demonstrations, including some of the negotiators, getting notification from the university that they have been suspended. And in regards to the people in Hamilton Hall, they are being threatened with an even more serious step. They're being threatened with expulsion, meaning no chance of returning to Columbia if they don't vacate that hall. So far, no sign that they are making a move.
And Kristen, of course, as you say, tension high. The police were there in pretty big numbers on Monday. What's the situation like there now with the security services?
Honestly, right now, I'm not seeing very many NYPD, New York Police Department officials. They do have patrols around the campus. They are stationed around the campus, but not as many as we have seen on other days. The buses that are used to take away people when they are arrested, I haven't seen any signs of those, but security is very tight from the university in terms of allowing people on campus or not, and there are plenty of police standing by. The concern, I think, from the administration is that the police presence just brought more attention and more supporters out last time. So there seems to be a war of attrition going on here to try to get more people off the campus, less people on the campus, so that they don't have a major development or scene on the campus.
Kristen Salumi there for us at Columbia University in New York. Thank you. Let's cross over to Phil Lavelle, who's at the University of Connecticut in Mansfield. He's outside the police station where people were brought in. Well, Phil, they were brought in and detained. Have any of them left?
They have been selling. In fact, what we've seen over the last 2 hours or so is that every maybe 20, 30 minutes, a student will come out having been processed. They've got their papers, and the crowd who've come here to show solidarity, to show support, break out into cheers of applause, and they clap, and they welcome them back into the group. And also we've been seeing cars going past, not just students, but people who look like they come from all walks of society, honking their horns in support of those students. Now, this encampment was broken up earlier today. It had actually been in place since Thursday, but on Friday, the university said to those students, look, these tents have got to go, and you have to adhere to a complete silence policy, for want of a better phrase. The university says that the students did not do that. They said they were making what they call amplified noise. The tents were there. They said as of Monday, there were 20 tents. Earlier today, the police arrived. They said, look, you've got to go or you're going to be arrested. Some of the students chose to leave. Others stayed, and that's why they've ended up here being processed. And I've got to bring in Manib Saeed now, who's an activist who was there this morning. And Manib, you were not arrested, right?
I was not arrested today.
So just explain to us how it all unfolded. Like, what happened?
Yeah, so today in the morning, we were waking up around 5 a.m., and we noticed a huge increase in police activity. In previous days, we've had maybe 1 or 2 cruisers kind of monitoring the situation. Today, we had maybe 40, 50 cars pull up on campus. We then kind of saw them start increasing their presence, getting on the ground. State troopers arrived. They started circling the entire camp. UConn PD, they closed off all the entrances. They weren't letting students, go back in and out. And then they made an announcement. They said, whoever is left here will be arrested. And that was kind of the point where some students decided to stay, right, to make a stand to show the university that, look, these students care about what they're saying. They're going to put their money where their mouth is. And as such, the UConn PD, they rolled in, they swept up the entire camp, they arrested people, they confiscated a lot of supplies, tents, people's bags, laptops, etc. And yeah.
And the police had already arrested people on previous days as well, I understand.
Right. So on Thursday, when the rally kind of took place in that center area, students put up a few tents. And keep in mind, this was before UConn had outwardly put out a policy of no tents allowed. So when students put up tents, UConn PD started coming in. They started getting very physical with the students, started pushing in, and they ended up arresting one person, actually dislocating their shoulder.
Are there any plans to start up another protest? Maybe not in the same place, but is there any plan to do anything else, more action?
100%, there's a plan to do more action on campus, and over the next couple hours, organizers will think about what is the best way to do that. It's not necessarily a camp, because it's important to remember that the point of this movement isn't just camps, it's to raise awareness and to really show the administration that we want them to come to our demands. All right,
Manib, thanks very much for that, I appreciate it. Just to tell you about another situation, this is at another university, not a million miles away, Yale, which is about, 50 miles away from here. There has been an encampment there. That encampment has now gone. The university, or rather the police, surrounded the campus area where the tents were at 6 a.m. They said, we are going to arrest anybody who stays here. The students chose to leave. The university themselves started to say, we will start to invoke some disciplinary procedures against you if you leave. Those protesters decided that it was best for them to leave for the time being. But as we've seen over the last few days, a protest ends and then it begins again, or they come back. So whether or not it is truly over, that remains to be seen, Sahil.
Thanks very much. Phil Lavelle there for us at MIT. Now, let's cross over to John Hendren, who's at Princeton University in New Jersey. Hi, John. A developing situation really there these past 24 hours where you are. What's been going on?
Well, overnight, there were about 13 arrests. Students entered a building, and some of them were taken out, put into a bus where police had planned to cart them away. But hundreds of students surrounded that bus and were able to negotiate their release. They were written up on disciplinary charges by university police, not city police. That's a difference between, a civil action and a criminal action. And you might be wondering why I'm not at Princeton University. I'm across the street where they're about to have a news conference, and the students who were arrested are not allowed to go back on campus. So we are in the town square in Princeton where they're about to address what happened last night. But about a dozen arrests, I think 13 was the actual total, and faculty were involved. They were helping escort those students to try to protect them from police. No faculty were arrested. But this is really one of the latest scenes where you're seeing this across the country. We've had more than 700 arrests, and these were simply the latest.
John Hendren for us there at Princeton in New Jersey. Thanks very much. Let's go over to the US Capitol, Washington, D.C., where Shihab Rutansi is standing by at George Washington University. Interesting, we've been to 3 universities already, Shihab. Detention, arrest, detention, arrest, detention, arrest. That hasn't been the case where you are, though, has it?
I mean, there have been attempts to arrest, but they've been sort of foiled by the protesters. But the fact is, we know that the administrators here at George Washington University have asked the police to come in and violently clear the place, and the police are saying no. It's quite bizarre, really. Actually, let's talk to one of the protesters. One is here with us. I mean, it's strange though. You get that sense that if you were protesting against Russia, for example, or you were protesting about climate change, you know, the head of the university would be like, "Fine, this is great." But why do you think she is, or why do I think they are so virulently against this particular protest?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really great point, and it's heavy on all of our minds. And I think the answer is rather clear about this is a financial institution. This is not an academic institution. And our demands are clear, and it's for them to divest. And that is absolutely something they're not committed to. But more than that, we're bringing attention to an issue that they want to gloss over, and that's the genocide happening in Gaza. And I think that's really the important part, right?
Why would your administrators, the academics, you know, the academic infrastructure here be against you drawing attention to that, though?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that is trying to be swept under the rug, the way that even most American media is covering it. The New York Times, publications such as those refuse to use the word genocide. And that's a word that we're going to put out here on every sign. And you can't walk by this campus, you can't walk through downtown D.C. without seeing it.
But then that leads to the question of how you're so aware of what's going on in Gaza, and indeed, you know, the depth of knowledge about the nature of the Israeli occupation and so on is huge here. But how is it that you're also aware of all of this when, as you say, Western media is trying to avoid it all?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, my honest answer is my specialty is not this specific conflict, not even Middle East as a region. Mine is Latin America, and I study borders and I study migration because my own parents were displaced because of U.S. imperialism. But that's the point we're getting at here, is that everyone, the students, have come together and they assess the world. They assess what they see, what they can feel, what they can touch, and they say something's wrong and something's up. And that's where the search for knowledge happens, right? You have students here who are inquisitive about the world around them, and if you're looking for answers, it doesn't take any time at all to find them, to find the truth, and that is, of course, the mass graves, the massacres that are going on in Gaza, and just all of the displacement that's happening there. And that's...
The term is almost over. So, I mean, what's going to happen? How is this going to resolve itself, do you think, here at this encampment?
Yeah, I mean, I, as well as fellow encampments, are here to stay. I think, like, I'm here during the summer, you know, and I know that administration is too. This is where they live. The president's house is a block away. So if they think that, I mean, this last week of classes is going to be any indicator of slowing down, I think we have strong community support. It is a student encampment that is backed by community, because it's not just students that see what's happening in Gaza. It's community members that are coming in, outpouring of support all across the city. And that's, I mean, as you mentioned, it's the community power that has avoided violence, that has avoided arrest, and has made sure that this sustained effort can occur in such a powerful way that it has.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So still, a determined student populace here at George Washington University. So
Thanks very much. Shihab Rutansi there for us in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Let's cross over to Heidi Jo Castro, live for us in Austin, in Texas, at the University of Texas. It was just over 24 hours ago when we were talking to each other, Heidi, and the situation was getting very stressful for students and faculty, staff, and those either side of the protest debate. It seems to have calmed down definitely now, 24 hours later, but what's going on right now?
That's right. So it's a huge difference than when we last spoke 24 hours ago, but the protest still remains here in a very different form. Behind me is the lawn where we saw that encampment that was broken down by police, in which protesters were dragged away one by one, despite sitting peacefully on the ground. And now this is a teach-in. This is a similar scene to what we'd seen prior to that spontaneous encampment bursting forth yesterday. And now we're learning that more than 100 people protesting at UT Austin yesterday were arrested by police. To our knowledge, they still remain in police detention. We're trying to learn what charges they face, what their future might be. But the protesters who remain here say they are undaunted and will continue to be delivering their message. And that's why I want to turn to our guest. This is Amar Kadumi. Thanks so much for joining us. You're one of the original organizers of the protest that kicked off all of this last week. Tell me about how this turn of events has unfolded.
Yeah, so on Wednesday, April 24th, we announced we were going to have a peaceful demonstration on campus, a walkout followed by educational teach-ins here on the South Lawn. We received notice from UT that they were not going to allow this to happen without giving any basis for any sort of policy that we would be in violation of. And we continued with the event with the officers. With the just army of officers that UT administration called in. Which
is similar to what we also saw yesterday. So let's jump forward to that. And you saw a groundswell of support coming from the university community. Describe what seeing that manifest around you felt like.
Yeah, no, so I think, the community saw that how on April 24th, the university had no restraint in violently suppressing our voice. And so when there was another demonstration, peaceful demonstration that was being threatened by this army of police presence called here by the university, although we did not organize it, we called on our community to come out in support of this demonstration of free speech, which was threatened to be violated yet again by our university, who just again showed no constraint in using any means of crowd dispersal, including mace, including beating protesters and students with batons, running them over with motorcycles, mass arrests, hospitalizations. It really just is appalling to see our university take such great measures in violently suppressing what is supposed to be free speech from their students.
And we were here to see some of the macing, some of the arrests, police really just tearing people out of the crowd and putting them in handcuffs one by one. To see that overtake your campus, and then not only that, but to see the response, because originally there were several hundred, but then it grew to 1,000, if not more. Yeah. Talk about how that happened.
Yeah, so again, I think our community, they understand the sort of pressure we're under here at UT. I think we've become the most hostile campus just based on a number of arrests in the country. And I think our community also understands the severity of the situation, given that we are advocating for the liberation of a people that have been under siege for the past 18 years, that are currently under a brutal genocide that has killed tens of thousands of children, men, women, and children. And the community understands that the stance our university is taking to just crack down despite the free speech, despite the subject of what we're actually protesting. Our community understands us and will always be there to support us, and for that we're very grateful.
Thank you so much, Amar. And as you can see, the continued protest now remains peaceful. It's likely to stay this way for the rest of the day, I'm told, but there are other events planned in the future. Still no word from the UT administration. We've sent requests about why yesterday's police crackdown was ordered and the response to all the chaos that we saw unfold afterwards. So,
Heidi Jo Castro there for us at the University of Texas in Austin. Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.